So I wanted to do a status of our solar setup after a year of the last upgrade here to over 10,000 watt. Currently staying at the Lone Rock Beach Campground outside Page, Arizona. It's in the high 90s every day here, some days above 100, but one trick I found with the trailer install is that we actually hook up the air conditioning and it runs off the trailer setup. But let's take a look at some of the details here of how the system actually have worked. So looking at the setup first in the trailer in here, the Tesla is currently sitting here in the shade being plugged in and it's actually currently charging, but it's early morning, so we are only charging with 10 amp or around 2.5 kilowatt in here. Let's get into the trailer and the solar panels. By the way, the whole setup has been sitting deployed all winter, even in some really strong winds, more than 80 miles per hour winds down in Salome. So it turns out that it's actually quite strong and there's no problem with it having it deployed all the time. So we're getting into the trailer. The air conditioner is sitting up there. It's currently not running, but when we're running full load in here, there's 500 watt of heat being put into the trailer, so it actually needs to run most of the time. The inverters, both of them are active in here. They work as solar controls, of course, also. And as I mentioned, we're charging the Tesla with around 2.5 kilowatt right now. In total, we have from RV and trailer generated more than 14 megawatt hour the last year actually. There is a third inverter over here, and yeah, that's a long story, but the issue is don't have the inverters or the solar controllers in production and then add more solar panels. It will blow them up. But the units were under warranty and it never said anything in the manual about it, so Signature Solar was very nice to replace them for free. But I had already bought 2 extras simply to get it back working again before they confirmed that one. But that's just a spare unit over there. We don't really need anything extra. It's not even hooked up, it's just grounded. That's all there is to it. The RV is hooked up to the 50 amp cord in here, and that's actually how we run the air conditioning, simply plugging it in as you would do on a pedestal. We're able to do 40 amps actually on this circuit or on both lines, so we can run anything we want. But by switching the breakers in the RV, we really only run the 2 air conditioners and nothing else off the trailer. So everything else in the motorhome is running by itself in there. There's all kinds of other things up here running all the time, and we have the air conditioner sitting on one of these Elgato Eve devices that you can put on a schedule, so it don't run overnight because it's kind of loud. We can actually hear it in the bedroom when it's idle on and off. And Tesla charger still works great, and there's no issues with that. It have ran more than 10 megawatt hour through that one charging Teslas. In the winter time we charge 2 Teslas actually. We have a friend that have a Model 3, and we kept both cars charged most of the time, the whole winter. The setup here is still the same. The trailer is connected to the RV, both supplying 120 volt in, and it actually can use some of the solar panels on the roof through the Morningstar controller in there also. And there's not a lot of things changed in here. It's kind of a wire mess right now, but the 2 Morningstar controller handle the 8 panels from the roof, and the Magnum inverter is going strong still in here. the breaker panel we added is really a key to running a lot of loads on here. But I found that if you run 2000 watts or more on a sustained level, this room gets so hot in here that running the air conditioner at high outside temperature is really not an option on this inverter. It works fine, but it just don't allow it because it's getting too hot. The batteries in here is still the 8 Battleborns heated batteries. We never had a use for the heating, but the price was basically the same what we got them for, and that allowed us to run everything in the RV. We used to have set up with 20 kilowatt hour useful energy. Now we have 10, and it gets kind of annoying because we get down to 30-25% every day. So if you don't watch it and you get an overcast day the following day, you end up almost depleting the batteries, and that is kind of annoying. Looking for an option to get more storage in here, and that will maybe be an upgrade in the winter time here. Looking at some numbers here, this one is a graph of the last year from the 1st of September until end of August here in 2023. Over the winter, we have had a ground deployed setup also for the solar panels. So instead of the 10 kilowatt we have on our roof, we had almost 20 kilowatts of solar plants deployed during the winter time. Also, as you look at it here in July, the RV has been sitting connected to the trailer and basically running AC day and night, and it managed to do that for almost 2 months in here, and it got really warm. It got close to 120 degrees down in Phoenix, or close to the Phoenix area where we're sitting. We're now in much colder temperatures, and the AC don't use as much, but of course now we charge the car. Over the winter, a lot of these has really been car charging, so the total output has been up around 70 kilowatt hours in a day actually here. But the RV is using around these 12-15 kilowatt hours. That is the orange curve down here. We have a way of moving the solar panels, or half the solar panels on the RV, and send them to the battery in the back. And that is that little blue curve. As you can see, it hasn't been active for most of the time during the winter time. And we only use it when we need to charge the car. We manually have to go flip 2 breakers to actually make this work out here. So looking at some totals in here, we have summaries for each day in here, and we have generated 14.5 megawatt hour here. That is, by the way, for Phoenix electricity prices. That's more than $2,000. But having that much electricity delivered in an off-grid location would for sure not be just that price. That will be in a house, of course. On the RV, we generated 3.5 megawatt hour, and that's pretty much what we have been doing the last 5 years anyway, because we have quite a lot of things running, and it creates a lot of load. We haven't used the extra controller where we can send some panels much, because it's only 1/4 of a megawatt. But coming back to the GrowWatt controllers, that's the one in the trailer, running AC in the RV and also charging the Teslas, of course. And that's where we have been having a lot of power going through those ones, 11 megawatt hours. We normally charge during the daytime because the batteries in the trailer is 20 kilowatt hour, 16 useful. It didn't make much of a dent in the 80 kilowatt hour in the Tesla, so there's no reason to just drain the batteries, unless you, of course, have to just go on a drive in an early morning, or you came back in the evening with a low battery. Then you can charge a little off the batteries. An interesting thing is here is almost 11 kilowatt hours generated from solar, and it have only outputted 9.5, so 1.5 megawatt hour is actually lost in here. And that is because the grow watt controllers are 95% efficient, but they have a pretty high base load. So overnight, in the wintertime, they drain around 10% out of the battery, or 2 kilowatt hours. That adds up when you have to do that over 365 days, and that's basically one of the main thing in here. So we summarized how much we added and drawn from the battery. So we can see we have done 170 cycles basically on the batteries in here. So that is almost half a cycle every day at that point. We have been in the wintertime with all the extra solar panels generating a huge amount of power, up to 11 megawatt or 11 kilowatt in here from the sun. But that is basically the total summary. 14.5 megawatt hour of energy generated, 2 Teslas in the wintertime being kept charged for 6 months. And we're now running the air condition simply by plugging in the motorhome to the trailer.